Hey guys, welcome to another tutorial. In this one I'll be covering how to integrate PuppetMaster with Emerald AI, taking up from where my last video left off. I'll be covering throwing an enemy around. I've written a script that gives you haptic feedback to your fist. See, we're doing damage. I've also written some code that makes you drop them so you can't just sit there and hold them till they die. We're also going to do location-based damage on this toward the end, which should be fun. And we're also going to enable location or remote grabbable on death. So, you know, hey, look at me, look at me. Anyway, good times. Stick around if you're interested in doing stuff like that. Good times. Okay. So, picking up where I left off in my last video, there was a point in that video, the Emerald AI integration video, where I told you to stop if you were going to do this video. If you haven't completed the Emerald AI video or you don't have it working, go back and watch that. And at a certain point, I told you not to go any further or make a copy before we continued with that. So I'm going to pick up where that video left off with me copying my zombie. This is the one from the last video. So we're going to go ahead and disable him and enable the one that's just got Emerald AI without location-based damage or Ragdoll or anything. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get PuppetMaster. So Windows, Package Manager, and import. Import. Okay. So now we have PuppetMaster. PuppetMaster is located in the plugins folder. So if you go to plugins, root motion, that's where you'll find PuppetMaster. So once you have it imported, click on the zombie that already has Emerald AI on it, and we're going to add a component, and it's going to be biped Ragdoll creator, and just create Ragdoll. At this point, you can come in and see that it's ragdolled, and then you can start editing manually, and you can come in here. I'm not going to go too far into this, but you can change your colliders, make them fit a little bit better. So if I click on this one, and then I can size his head down, or I can, you know, move it to where it needs to be. We'll make that a little bit better. So you can edit your colliders, and then it also has where both sides change at the same time, which is pretty cool. Okay, so once you're happy with your colliders, I'm just going to leave them as is. You can actually just remove it, the component, and it'll leave the ragdoll. So once we get rid of the ragdoll, add component, and we're going to add oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Remove component. Add component, PuppetMaster. And then we're just going to say set up PuppetMaster. And then you'll see it gives us a root, and then we now have PuppetMaster and we have zombie. Okay. Now we need to go ahead and save it, and we need to get some behaviors for this thing. So as you can see, there's no behaviors. Underneath this, there should be children behaviors. That's the way PuppetMaster works. So if you go into plugins, root motion, PuppetMaster, and then go into demos, and then find melee grab and open it up. Come down to bot Teddy. Come down to behaviors and just copy his behaviors. Control copy. And then we're going to go back to our scene. And then click back on our zombie where we have PuppetMaster and we got behaviors, and then just paste them. And then make them children of Puppetfall. Okay, so for our puppet, we don't want his layer to be player. I don't know why it defaults to that, but we are going to make a, should still be, yeah. We're going to make a new layer called puppet, so just add layer. We're going to make it puppet. Okay, and then for our PuppetMaster, just change this layer to puppet. Click yes, change children, and then I want this to be AI. I don't want it to be restricted, so switch that back to AI and yes, change children. So these will all be our AI, which has got our Emerald AI system, and then our PuppetMaster is going to be on Puppet. The thing about this is these two layers need to ignore each other. So let's go up to Edit, Physics, so Project Settings, Physics, and then down where it says Puppet and AI, where they come together, just unclick. That way they're ignoring each other. Okay, so next, if we come into our behavior puppet, behavior puppet, ground layers. This is the layer that it's going to attach itself to, so you need it to be the ground. So we can just layer this as the ground. So let's add a layer. We'll call it ground. Okay, and then go back to your behaviors puppet, and instead of water, just make it ground. And then our collision layers, let's see. And then our collision layers, we want it to be player and grabbable, because we want to be able to hit them with our grabbables. And we can get rid of that. And actually, we probably could have just used default for that. So yeah, let's go back to our puppet, and our ground we'll just use default. And we can leave that tag there. It's not going to hurt anything. This is basically just so these are the only two layers that will cause him to unpin himself, so he turns into a puppet. So we're going to use player and grabbable. Next, let's go over and let's show you how to get the animations for the puppet. So let's go back. Let's go ahead and save the scene. Save, and then go back to Assets, Plugins, Root Motion, and then go into your PuppetMaster Demos, and then go back to our Melee Grab. And if you click on Bot Teddy and come down to, let's see, where's it at? Character controller, I think there's one more down. Animation controller. And find his animation controller and then open it up. What we need is these two right here, behavior puppet and behavior fall. So just click one, hold control, click the other one, and then control C to copy them. So once you got them copied, come back over to your assets and go back to the scene that we were just in, where your zombie's at. And then come back to our scene, and then if you click on our zombie and come down to where our Emerald AI is, and then come down to the override controller, and then double click that and open it up, just paste them. So now we have the behaviors that we need, and it automatically fills everything in for you. So now from behavior puppet, go ahead and make a transition. So right click on behavior puppet, make a transition, and then just connect it to movement. And that's all we got to do as far as setting up our straight up puppet animations and stuff. Okay, so next we need to tag our hands so that our hands, when they go into collision, will make them actually unpin and fall. So come to the player controller, and I'm going to use the second set of hands. The only reason I'm not using the green gloved hands is because they don't have a rigid body that I could find. And in order for us to do damage, we need a rigid body. So what I'm going to do is I want to come down to the hand model selector, and I'm going to just disable it, and then come down and span this out, and then come down to your gloves left, models left, and then just disable the left hand green gloves, and then come down to the black new, and then just enable it. And then same thing for your right hand. So span that out, come down to models right, disable the green glove, and then your model's new, enable it. So now it'll start with those hands. Then come up, and then we're just gonna relabel these as puppet. Yes, change children. Then click on the other one, and we'll make it player. Sorry, player. Yes, change children. Player, not puppet. Player. Yes, change children. Okay, so now I'm gonna hop in VR and check that out. So now we can knock him down. And he ragdolls. All right. Okay, so there you have a basic setup with PuppetMaster, but now we want to make them grabbable. So if you come down, let's go ahead and get rid of this, and let's come down to our puppet, and let's just do his head, and let's find his head first. And let's just add a component, grabbable. And we're going to use fixed joint, I think is what I'm using. Yeah, fixed joint. And you don't really have to change anything. You'll probably have to change your throw force multipliers and angular multipliers. This is how much force that it gives to an object when you're throwing it. So I've actually got this reduced pretty well. But you can play with it, get it down real low so that you can't throw them as far. At least that's what I'm gathering is what's going on. Because the harder I throw, he still goes farther if I throw really, really, really hard. So one thing I'll say is you probably don't want snap. Can be snapped to a snap zone because you'll be grabbing him and he'll accidentally snap into your belt, which is kind of funny but not very good for gameplay. I guess you could make it snappable on death. That would be kind of funny. You could collect them, I guess, collect bodies or something if you wanted to. Be kind of weird, but you could do that. And next, let's make his pelvis grabbable. So add component grabbable, and same thing. We'll just make it a fixed joint, and then we'll make it to where it does not snap to a snap zone. Then we're going to need some scripts. So let's come back to your assets, and let's just make a new folder. We'll call it Puppet Scripts, I guess. And right click, and let's see, which one do I want to do first? Let's see. Guess we'll do the unpin. Yeah, let's do unpin grab. So create a new C# script, and we'll call this unpin grab. Open it up. And at the top, you're going to need using root motion dynamics and using BNG. And I'll make these scripts available in the description. I wanted to give you guys some stuff in a script that works with this so that you can kind of get an idea how all this works. And I've tried to label what everything does in here. So we need our PuppetMaster component, which is the component on our puppet, which is where we're going to put this. We're going to need a left grabber and right grabber because we're going to do haptics. Am I doing haptics in this one? No, I'm not doing haptics in this. We need these because I'm going to set this up to where you have a max allowed hold time. So that way you can't just hold the guy up in the air until he dies. So after 1 second, I think, yeah, I've got to set default to 1, but you can change it in the inspector so it'll automatically drop them. That way you can still throw them around, but you can't just hold him until he's, deceased again. You need the puppet layer because we're going to check for the layer that the PuppetMaster is on so that we can use it. And then we need an array of our grabbables. We need a private private PuppetMaster.state. So we're just getting the state. So death, if it's dead, or if it's alive. And then this is just something I made that you can switch in the inspector so that you can enable remote grab on death. So if you want him to be remote grabbable after he's dead, you can make it true, or if not, you can just make it false. Or if you don't want that option at all, you can just delete the method. On start, we're going to get our PuppetMaster component, and we're going to get our puppet layer. And we're going to have a method that we're going to run on grab to. So we're going to pass a float to this when we grab, and then we're going to lower the pin weight. So we're going to unpin them, which we can, the float that we set from our grabbable, when we set this up, we'll be able to pass the amount of pin weight that we want to set on grab. And that'll make sense here in a minute. When we go to the grabbable, I'll try to explain it more. And then on release, this is what we want it to go back to. That we're going to set to an on release. So when you let go, it'll set the pin back to 1, so that he repins the PuppetMaster to the Emerald AI. And then it's going to see, let's see, when we grab, it's going to start a creatine. This is what causes our enemy to drop after a set amount of time. So it's hold time, which is our float up at the top. You can set that in the inspector for how much of a hold time that you want. It gets the PuppetMaster's state, so it'll only do this if he's not dead. So if he's not dead, then it's going to cause it to release. But if he's dead, then it's going to negate all this, and that way you can just hold him forever. But while he's alive, you can only hold him for 1 second. And then this is just the enable remote grab. So after he's dead, if you have it set to true, you'll be able to remote grab the body. Simple enough. Save that up. So now let's go back into Unity. And hopefully when I put this on our PuppetMaster, so click on PuppetMaster. Come down to the bottom and just put it on there, and hopefully it gives me my fields, and it didn't because it never does. I just go in here and do a click edit comment, save it up, and hopefully it will reload the scripts. And it did, so I need my left and my right grabber. So let's go to my rig, come down to the left grabber, take our grabber, slap it in there, and then it needs our right grabber, and slap it in there. This is where you can set the hold time. So right now I've just got it set for 1, but you could go for anything that's a float value, and then enable remote grab on death. If you want him to go remote grab when he dies, you can check that as true. So now let's go down to the grabbables that we made. So we had his pelvis, right? So let's just add a component, grabbable Unity events, and then we're going to add an on grab and an on release, and then we're going to take our PuppetMaster, which is where we put our script, and we're going to run unpin. We're going to lower pin. So we want the lower pin on grab, and then on release, let's get our puppet. Unpin grab. We want it to raise the pin. This is where you can set your float values. So when I grab them, I want it to go to 0, and then when I release them, I'm going to have them go back to 1. So you can mess with these. So maybe you only want to unpin 0.5, so you can send 0.5. So I'm going to pass this float value. I gave you the ability to send a float value from this script to our other script. So when you put this float value in here on our other script in unpin grab, it's going to pass that float value to here, lower pin and raise. So you can manipulate for every single grabbable how much it unpins the entire puppet. Hopefully that made sense. And file save, and then we'll do the same thing for our head. So let's come down to the head, and then we'll just add a component, Unity grabbable events, grabbable Unity events, and do an on grab and do an on release. Same thing, just grab your puppet, put it over there. Grab our puppet, put it over there, then on grab, we want it to lower the pin, and then on release, we want it to raise the pin. File, save. Now, we need to send an event that tells Emerald AI that this guy's dead, or that tells the PuppetMaster, yeah, that this thing's dead, vice versa. So what we're going to do, is we're going to go to our zombie 1, which is where Emerald AI is at. Come up to the top, and we need to go to, where the heck is it? Events. Say AI settings and events, and then come down and hit combat. And then down at the bottom, we have on death event. We need 2 of them. So we're going to take our PuppetMaster and put it in here, and come down to PuppetMaster and then kill. So whenever we die and on death, it's going to tell PuppetMaster that we're dead, and it's going to change its state to dead. And then the other one we need is our unpin script. So let's take PuppetMaster and put it in there. Come down to unpin grab, and this is enable remote grab on death. So when he dies, Emerald AI will run that method and it'll enable the remote grab so we can remote grab him on death. Okay, click back on zombie head, the human head, underneath PuppetMaster, and come down to where I said ungrab and on release. I forgot to set this to 1 so that it repins on release. Alright, we'll hop in VR and see what that looks like. As you can see, it automatically dropped after 1 second. It'll only let you hold it that long, and we can still push him down. Okay, so now let's set up our script for where we can actually punch him and do damage with our hands. So the thing is that the way these are set up, it won't see collision, because these gloves are kinematic the way the collision script is, so I had to modify it a bit. So go ahead and right click and create a new script, and we'll call this fist damage. Go ahead and open it up. And at the top you're going to need using BNG. And this is just a modified version. I basically had to turn it into a trigger. Oops, I need Emerald AI in its namespace. Emerald AI's namespace, not example, because that's where I got it from. It's just a modified version. So anyway, basically all I did was I took their damage script and I turned it into an on trigger enter instead of it being an on collision collider or collision collider. It's now an on trigger enter. And if we do damage, which this is for location based or regular, we're going to turn this into location based. It's going to do haptics for our grabber. So I just added a grabber, and then you have your damage amount, and then this is your frequency, amplitude, and duration for the haptics. So all I did was I added haptics to it, and then I made it into a trigger. Simple enough. So go ahead and save that up. I know that's a little messy, but let's see. There we go. That's better. But you know, I'll fix that later. Go ahead and save that up, and then let's go back into Unity. And then let's double click on our player here. Let's get rid of our gizmos so we can actually see. So let's come down to our, I have to have those back. Click on gizmos and then just make their size smaller, or you can go in and you can get rid of the icons, but just get them out of the way so you can actually see what's going on. So come into your left hand, and let's just go ahead and add a component, spear collider. And bring its radius down. It doesn't need to be too big. These are just going to be triggers for when you punch the guy. So, you know, you can play around with the size and the placement and make it about, I think I made it about the size of a fist is what I did. And I just kind of, oops. Well, come here. It's going to be big enough. Okay, so now let's just make it a trigger. And then come over to your right hand and do the same thing. Go ahead and bring the radius down. which we could click on our other one to find out what the radius was, but it won't be in the right spot, so that doesn't matter. Same thing, just you know, make it about that size. And get it to where it needs to be. Yeah. That's good enough. And then make it a trigger. And save it up. I'll save. And then take our fist damage and put it on there. Oops. Got to unpack my rig. Prefab. Unpack completely. Come back down to our hand. And then just put fist damage on there. Oh, are you going to do that to me? Alright, here. I don't know why Unity does that sometimes. But we can actually get rid of this and put using Emerald AI.example, and it should work. Maybe not. Okay, for some reason me deleting it and then just putting it back in there is exactly the way it was, namespace Emerald AI.example, and then saving it made it take it. So hopefully you don't have that same problem, but if you did, apparently all you got to do is delete the namespace and then put it back. So take our fist damage, put it on there, on our fist. And once you have it, the only thing it needs is the grabber, so it can do the haptics. So come down to your grabber and just put it on there. Now let's come back to our left hand. And the same thing, put fist damage on there, and then come down, it needs the grabber. And then here's how much damage we want to do. I set it really low, just because I felt like if you were hitting a zombie with your hands that it wouldn't do a whole lot. For the damage collider on the hand, go ahead and disable that. And let's come back down to our right hand. Same thing, I'm going to set this to 1, and then for the damage, I'm just going to disable it. Alright, so let's jump in VR and check that out. Well, before we do that, let's go ahead and set up the health bar and stuff on this guy, since I didn't do that for this model. So go ahead and go to where's he at? Go to zombie, our copy of our zombie. Is that it? No. This one, where our Emerald AI system is at, and then go over to our UI settings, and then let's see, UI layers. So we need our player in there so that it can detect us. And then what do we want? I just want his health bar. Sure, yes. I'm sure we'll have his name and title, yes, and then his level. Sure, yes. Let's make sure real quick that that's popping up and working. Okay. And I'm going to hop in VR and check that out. Oh, he killed me. Okay, the rifle works, does damage, does way too much damage. We'll have to reset that, so let's go ahead and do something about that. Let's come down to the rifle. Okay, I don't remember if I covered this in my last video. You might have to watch it all the way through to get this, but there's a damage AI by collision script. If we go to, where the heck are you? Plugins. Root motion, then go into PuppetMaster, and then go into scripts. No, that's not where that's at. Back up. Emerald AI scripts examples. There's a damage AI by Collision in here that I'm using on the rifle, which works just fine. This is what you would use on cars or hammers or any other kind of weapon that you would need Collision for. So on the rifle, you just put that on the rifle itself, and then you can change the damage amount. And what do I have this zombies? If I click on my zombie, what do I have his hit points set to? Let's go to AI settings and stats. Oh, his health's only 25. Okay, so let's make that 200. And for my player, just so we've got more time to work, let's come down to player controller, come all the way down to the bottom where player health is. And let's make us have 1,000. Okay. Okay, so from here you have a single collider damaged. So if you click on this guy, on the zombie, we bring up the gizmos, you can see he's only got one single collider to do damage. So from here I'm going to give him location based damage, and this one took a minute for me to figure out, but it's actually not that difficult. I found a pretty quick way of doing it. I actually tried changing the PuppetMaster scripts to make it find certain ways and try different things, but it ended up being just a pretty straightforward way. I don't know if it's the most efficient way to do it, but it's a way that works to get location based damage. So anyway, let's go up here on his box collider. We have to keep this because Emerald AI needs it. So let's pull this down and make it small and out of our way. It doesn't even have to be that big, but I'm just going to leave it about like that. Now let's click on our zombie and then go to Windows. And I don't know if you got to this part or not, but there is a, let's go to our package manager. I'll just show it to you. Ragdoll. You could probably use PuppetMaster's biped ragdoll, but we're just going to use a free asset called Ragdoll Helper. It makes a pretty good ragdoll and it works for this, so I'm just going to use that. It's a free asset. It's convenient. So let's click on my zombie and then come to Windows and then come down to BZ Soft, hit Ragdoll Helper, just leave it on Ragdoll and then just hit create. Now, the only thing we got to do to this is we got to go through here and we've got to get rid of all these, all the configurable joints. So you can go through and get rid of them one at a time if you want. There is a workaround, but I'm just going to quickly run through here. You can actually, well, hey, let's just see it. No, I'm not going to do that. Configurable joint, just get rid of it. So remove component, span this out, and I think there's one on the calf. Remove component. Leg, remove component, and then just go through all of them and remove them. I'll pause it and I'll go through and remove all of them. Only on the zombies bones, not on PuppetMaster, just on these. Okay, so once you've gone through there and you've got rid of all of the character joints, you should be just left with rigid bodies and box colliders on all of them. That gives us the colliders and the rigid bodies we need for our location-based damage. And because these are ignoring each other, they're not going to interfere with each other. So let's go back up to Zombie 1, come down to the bottom, and just this Emerald AI damage, we'll just get rid of it. So remove component, and then we're going to add a component, location-based damage. And these are multipliers. So now if you hit get colliders, it'll find all of our new colliders. So ragdolling it made it really simple for us to get all the colliders that we need for our location-based damage. In my last video, I went over that these are multipliers. So, you know, if my gun's doing 25 damage, I would do a multiplier. So 1 means 25. I can go backwards. I could say 0.5, or I could say, you know, 4 if I wanted to be a death shot, since I'm only putting 1 in. So on my head, I'm going to make that a 4 because it's, you know, I want it to do more damage to 100. Right now I've got a zombie's hit points, but if you wanted this to be a kill shot, just do the math to whatever it would need to be to completely kill them. And then you could just make it a multiplier. It goes forwards and backwards. So now just go to where you want him to take damage at. So we'll do the head. Let's see, let's find his head. Got everything spanned out here. It makes everything hard to find. Spine, neck, head. Come down to the head, you'll see you got a collider and a rigid body. So just add component, Emerald AI damageable. And for every one of these that you're going to want him to take damage on, you're going to have to add an Emerald AI damageable, because now our location-based damage is looking at this collider, looking for raycast damage. So the only thing this does, if you open this script, edit this script, it's a really short override script. This is just overriding it and then sending those values over to the Emerald AI system so that it can damage it. That's all it is. So just throw that on each one of the colliders that you want to be able to get damage on. And we'll just do, I'm not going to do all of them, let's just do his chest. So add a component, Emerald AI damageable. So if you come back to our location-based damage, which is at the bottom of our Emerald AI character, the main guy, I've got the head set to 4, and then let's find his spine 2, and we'll say this is worth 2 times the damage. So when we're hitting him, we're only doing a few damage, and when we're shooting him, we're doing more damage. So go ahead and hit File, Save. Okay, let's jump into VR and check all that out. If I shoot him in the leg where it's not set up, gets nothing. I can shoot him in the chest. I can shoot him in the head. So let's check out all the functions real quick. I can knock him down. I can hit him with my fist, getting haptics in my hands. Grab him by the belt. Grab him by the head. Pick him up, and it drops him. Pick him up by the belt, and it drops him. Shoot him in the leg, nothing. I can shoot him in the chest. And I can shoot him in the head. And remote grabbable, yay, look at me. I'm a bad zombie guy. Okay. Okay, and with that I'll go over a couple of last things. Remember, if you're wanting to add another grabbable, you'll just go to each limb that has the collider on your puppet that you're going to want to make grabbable. Set it up exactly the way you do the rest of them, and then you can set your pin values. So right here. So whenever you do the grabbable uni events to hit that script that's on PuppetMaster, you can just pass your values here directly to it. If you go back to PuppetMaster, you can see that we have a hold time, so you can adjust your hold time there, and you can enable the grab on death or not. I just wanted to give you some simple functionality. The further you go down the rabbit hole with PuppetMaster, the harder it gets. You can actually unpin certain muscles and things like that, and you get really in depth with them depending on what you're doing. Just keep in mind that your stats, this does take up some resources. So if you're doing standalone, you wouldn't want a lot of these. I'm not even entirely sure what the stats would be like on standalone. I did do a test for PC VR, and it actually wasn't that bad. With about 10 of them, you'd have a little bit of drops if they were all attacking you at the same time, but not by very much, only a couple of frames, and it was when they were tracking back. So you just have to test it and see what works for you. One other thing that I want to leave you with, because I didn't go over it in the Emerald AI tutorial, if you're doing this one, if you want to look at functions for Emerald AI, if you just go into the zombie where Emerald AI is at, and you go over to detection and tags, and you click on look at options, you can say use look at, yes. If you come down, well, actually none of this, you just tell it yes. The problem is that when you hit play, he'll be looking at your chest, he'll be looking down. What you have to do in order to get him to look up at you is, what I did was I just changed his follow. So I changed the follow to player look at. So if you go to AI settings, where the heck is it? Nope, detection and tags, detection options. Is that where it's at? Right here. The player relation controls how the AI sees the player. So I believe this is the one you have to change. I think I changed this. I made a new tag, and I made it player look at, and I changed his follow tag, the thing that made him go off, to player look at, And then instead of him looking at the player, which is on our character controller, I came down and where the heck is it? Head collision, which is it's on your head. So I just tagged this as my player look at, and that way he was looking at my head instead of at my chest. So if you want him to look up at you, do that. He'll still see the player. He'll still attack the player. He'll just be looking at this instead of the player controller. So that's just a little tip for you. Until then, I hope you found this informative, and I hope you don't have too much trouble getting it set up, and I hope you have a lot of fun playing around and throwing ragdolls around. Thanks for joining.